real, and that's what I appreciate. So I'm going to ask you to give a round of applause for none other than, and he's one of my students, and he's killing it, my good friend, Dominic Reichman.
Happy Sunday, happy Sunday, happy Sunday. Wasn't that a good word from the good bishop? It was a good word. Classic Joshua right there. Always be confident. Always be confident. And that's going to be one of the things I'm going to mention today during this presentation. By a show of hands, how many of you have ever procrastinated on something? I'm in the right place then. Back in 2012, when folks kept telling me for years I got this radio voice, I was looking for a way to use it. And I said I was going to start a podcast. 4 years ago down the line, I published a book called Going North, Tips and Techniques to Advance Yourself. Book sales do great for the first few months. I lose my father in the month of March after the book was published, and then I lost track of marketing and everything like that. I needed to find a way to market what I was doing. Now I thought I could just go out, start a podcast, and just talk about whatever, motivation, just run my mouth for a good 20 to 60 minutes once a week, and then put that out to the world, but I figured that wouldn't be the greatest thing in the world because there must be a better way to actually help others as well. And that's the mission of my podcast, is to empower authors to share their story. Yes, that's right, because that's one of my life mottos. Advance others to advance yourself. If you're going to advance in life, you're going to need to be around people who want to advance. You got to figure out what they need, what are their plans, how can you help them fulfill their plans, and then have some of that brush up back on you. Now for my podcast itself, I was curious because how do you start a podcast? What is a podcast? Would anyone like to guess what the heck a podcast is? Cluster of interviews, that's good. All right, any other guesses? Well, both of you ladies are right, because that's the way I explain it to people. I like to call a podcast a lazy man's radio station. Because the interviews are pre-recorded phone call conversations, edited, mixed and mastered, and chopped up for later and uploaded later, as opposed to you getting into a studio, always making sure that you're on time, making sure your guests are on time, and not having to be prepared with a backup topic in case they get stuck in traffic or something. It may happen different in the podcast world, but you can actually recover a lot better if you have a backup plan. When I started my podcast, I had a bunch of launch dates. I had this campaign called 50 Days of Inspiration. I had 50 quotes created and hashtag Going North and podcast at the end. The only problem with those 50 Days of Inspiration, I only had 47 images. So it was 47 days of inspiration, and when day 50 came, there was no podcast. So you can tell procrastination was one heck of a thing for me at the time. I kept saying, okay, the campaign failed. Okay, I'll start at the 1st of September. I ran into a kerfuffle there too. And by this time, I had about 7 folks I've interviewed at the time. And I did tell them, September 6th, you're gonna hear it, it's gonna be up. September 6th came, there was no audio interviews up online anywhere. But let me tell you, September 17th last year, it finally happened. Because I made a promise to people. I put myself on the line. I put my feet to the fire and stopped procrastinating because I didn't know what an RSS feed was. I have a better understanding of it now, but still not a full understanding. But I was able to launch on SoundCloud and then boost up to 10 other platforms. And that's one thing you have to know in this game of entrepreneurship. Start where you are, start small, and then eventually grow from where you want to be. That's right. Because if you see a giant tree in the forest, it didn't get there in one day. This building wasn't put here in one day. This business wasn't here for just one day. It wasn't thought of in one day, and then it just branched out into different franchises in one day. Sir Charles didn't get here in one day. Reverend Allison, she didn't get here in one day. Dr. Mangum, definitely here not in one day. From the incubator to the kingdom, that is a process. The podcast piece was a process. I was curious. I wanted to know how to start a podcast. I learned from others after getting on someone else's platform and realizing you don't need to set up a studio in your home or go out like a pizza boy with a box full of equipment and interview them right there on the spot. You can do it from the comfort of your own home, or if there's a strange moment, if you have a pair of headphones with a mic, you can record it in your car if you're running late from work and traffic. So I was curious. I was committed. I told those folks their interviews would be up. I just went in and launched with what I had. Because some days, you'll just have to go with what you have in order to get what you want. And then I had to stay committed. Week by week, I started off with 6 on my first day. And I went strong for about a good 20 plus weeks after that. After episode 30, and then at the end of the episode, I let the folks know what my email was at the end and be like, hey, if you want to contact me directly, shoot me an email. And lo and behold, I get contacted by a Millionaire's media personality who wanted me to interview their person for their show. I'm not sure if you heard of him. His name is Damien Lupo. He is a millionaire martial arts master. He combined yoga with the Japanese art of Aikido to make Yogi-Do. I love martial arts. I love being around millionaires. He wrote a ton of books. This is perfect. No, I didn't ask for money. He asked me to be on my show, which was great. 2 days later, I get another inquiry from the folks at Merrill Moss Media that have been doing media for 20 plus years, for folks like James Patterson, Neil Gaiman, and some other popular authors. They had this new guy called Charlie Harari, who wrote a book called Unlocking Greatness. I find it funny that both of our books have a compass on the cover. And funny enough, they asked me to interview him to help promote his book. Then another person came to me from Maryland. And then I kept wondering where all these inquiries are coming from. So in May, after interviewing this person out in New Mexico, I was like, how the heck did you find me? Because I don't have millions of downloads like these other people, and I'm just some young guy from Maryland. How the heck did you find me? And lo and behold, I discovered I was actually pitched alongside Gretchen Rubin, Brendan Burchard, Lewis Howes, and Steve Olsher in a directory of podcasters as one of the top 10 podcasters in the world. I was in shock and I just screamed for joy right then and there, because I'm like, these guys, 2 of them were on Oprah. One of them was a best-selling author, and I've read a couple of their books, and they teach other folks how to become a millionaire messenger. How the heck am I listening along with these folks? And the reason is because I was consistent. When you start a podcast, you gotta be consistent. Every single week, when you say you're gonna upload on Thursday, make sure it goes up on Thursday. I almost didn't make it one night in November. It was like 11:50 p.m. at night, but it still went out that Thursday. It was gonna be Thursday somewhere when it was out. I was consistent. I was committed. And that's something you have to do for yourself and your business. Now, I don't have a stopwatch out there. My original plan was to give the inspiration for the 10 minutes and the other 10 minutes for Q&A. So fire your questions away, because I also have a handout of what I use to record, as well as a couple other resources. So any questions so far from the adoring audience? Oh, there you go.
Do you teach how to start a podcast?
I'll do the break, Alex. I'll give you a hand up.
Thank you so much. All right, cool. Do I teach others? Yes, I do. Eventually, it'll be for a fee, but right now, since we're cool, I got you covered. That's all right. Alrighty, next question. Oh, yes, how to pick my subjects. I chose a niche for my podcast, authors. If you have a book, you're not a jerk, you're being interviewed. That's basically it. Funny enough, some of the folks in this room have been interviewed. Dr. D, he's on the show. Allison Dan was on the show. Of course, Sir Charles, who is one of my first guests ever, has over 300 downloads at this point. He's actually in the top 20 downloads of the show. I'm currently 72 episodes in, so you're in good company. Any other questions? Yes.
How do you find the podcast? Which are you on the website or do you go to?
Yes, ma'am. So head over to dombrightman.com. My name is at the top, so you can go in and type in Dom, and then Brightman, BRIGHTMON.com. And if you have a swag bag, it is on the back of my business card. You can find it on YouTube, iTunes, Stitcher, and a ton of other places. Next question.
Is Anchor and podcast the same thing? Because I'm on Anchor.
Here we go. Yes, that is the same thing as well. It's actually a lot easier than what I'm currently doing at the moment. And I'm actually planning to start using Anchor because I have it as well. I have an account because they actually have an option where on Anchor, and for those of you who don't know, Anchor is this app / website where you can actually install it on your phone and then you can talk into your phone. And then it automatically uploads to podcasting websites for you, as opposed to having to buy a platform and all the other stuff. So for that, it's really good. But down the road, they actually installed like an automatic kind of donation button, I guess. So for those who may be in your fan club and they want to support you, they can actually donate to you. So yes, that is the same as a podcast, and that's a good option if you want to try to take the easier approach to it as well.
How do you start getting the word out so people can start sharing and listening to your podcast?
Yes. So for that, since I'm an author myself, I'm vending at events. I tell my fellow vendors, hey, two things. I got a podcast, and do you want to be on it? It's free advertisement. Some folks charge to be on their platforms. I don't charge because this is basically a recorded phone call conversation. I'm not charging you for that. I probably should charge for the work I do, but I won't. Because when you publish a book, especially if it's a self-published one, you most likely are a full-time employee trying to get yourself out there. So I'm trying to make it as easy as possible for you to get your feet wet with interviewing, as well as being cost-effective for you. So that's a way of service.
So, question, so when are you gonna start? Because you're not for free, so you need to start charging and
Yes.
advertise.
Yes.
Do you do any advertisement for your podcast?
Advertising is down the road, but as for marketing, I also use Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. LinkedIn is where I get most of my downloads because that's where the most serious people are. Because with LinkedIn, in terms of income, it's usually 50 grand and above for those in LinkedIn because that's a business networking social media site. Then there's Instagram, which connects you with folks all over the world. And I also market through that. I made a flyer for that, which features both me next to guests. And then I usually tag them in that because it actually has to do with them as well. So that's a way I advertise. And once it gets to a certain point, we'll be going out and actually seeking advertisement as well.
That's what I want to know, somebody, we're talking about, as a podcast.
Yes.
Is there a revenue stream attached to it for you as a podcast? Are you in charge of your audio show?
Yes.
What is the revenue stream attached to it for you?
So there's multiple ways of doing it. So with my podcast, I also mentioned in the opening episode, I'm also an author. So go to Amazon, buy the book. I also record my own book. So if they love the voice, they can go on ahead and actually purchase the book or the audiobook. That's one income stream. For those who want to donate, there's a PayPal me option where you can go to PayPal. And there's also, of course, down the road with advertisements. So for those, once I get to my 1-year anniversary, which is in about a good 2 weeks or so, I'm gonna be seeking sponsors for the show so I can advertise for them. Because another thing I learned while listening to a podcast audiobook is that it's still kind of a new thing. And the way to advertise to sponsors is by seeing it yourself as a media company. Because this is the generation we're moving into. With YouTube and everything else, Instagram TV, folks don't watch TV as much. That's why you see a lot of ads on YouTube and all the social medias, because folks are advertising on social media because that's where folks are, on their phones scrolling. So those are 3 streams of revenue.
Can you repeat that? We can't hear you.
Yeah, I basically just was asking, basically, what other platforms do you, I guess, advertise, or not advertise, but basically just, make your podcast available just so people can listen. I know you said YouTube and iTunes, I just want to know what other platforms.
Off the top of my head, I'm not sure of all of them, but some more obscure ones. There's iTunes, there's YouTube, there's one called Stitcher for podcasting,
Yeah.
SoundCloud.com, that's a classic one. Also, there is one called Player FM. Oh, I gotta forget this one. Google Play is also a way you can find the podcast as well. It's soon gonna be on iHeartRadio, Spotify. It's also on TuneIn. Let's see, what other ones? There's one called Listen Notes. That's a website, that's a podcast directory. Some guy in California, some Asian guy just created a website and made a directory podcast. That's another way where you can find it as well.
Kind of a loaded question, but so in today's, I guess, like the way that our generation kind of receives media and things like that, a lot of what we're looking for is visual. With like your IGTV and your YouTube, a lot of it comes as more visual interviews. So say for instance, a lot of the popular radio shows that we've heard of, Breakfast Club, Sway and all those, they've taken those platforms and become visual, like they videotape the interviews now so we can see the people that they're talking to as well as the interviewer. So how do you, or how are you thinking, I guess, of, are you thinking of transitioning into that for people who are more visual, who aren't into listening to podcasts as much as listening and seeing at the same time?
I was actually expecting something heavier. This podcast, nothing much really visual is planned at the moment. I know some folks do a live studio recording, then upload it later. That's currently not my plan at the moment. It may change down the line because a smart person knows how to change their mind when the opportunity presents itself, as well as keeping their code of ethics in mind. But currently, there's no real visual plan. I mean, for Instagram, sometimes I'll post a social media flyer, both a picture of myself and the guest, and then a 60-second audio clip from one of the more powerful parts of an interview. All right, so 2 more questions. Oh, from the good doctor.
Dom, since you started doing the podcast, what has empowered you most about the podcast? One thing.
Okay, one thing. The one thing that has empowered me the most is probably the fact that I'm learning that it's really a learning experience. I probably say that I'm all about personal growth. Each guest I talk to, I gain a different perspective. I actually talked to a guy in Australia, Australia's #1 image coach, and he mentioned this book by Anthony DeMello called Awareness, just being aware of your surroundings around you and realizing that some things are kind of a lie in a way because tradition is not always truth. So I'd say it's probably the personal growth aspect, being able to learn from others, because that's one of the most powerful ways of learning. Having a conversation with someone else and listening to conversations of folks who've been around for a while and seeing what their mindset is and just learning from them. Alrighty.
Good job. Now, I know you understand why I'm after that voice. Rich Barrett. And had I known him a lot younger, I could have grown into it and maybe been a better vocalist as well.
There you go.
But